Hey everyone, Darren DOG here. I've got some great questions from some of you after the last video, and I felt it was time to address them as time was just passing. So first came in from Mel A, where she said, where is it? I've lost it now. So Mel A said, how about some of your thoughts on childhood wounds that hold us back on life? Well, this one stung me because I really relate to it. I've had this one bother me plenty in my life. Now, there are plenty of cathartic and psychotherapeutic and emotional work techniques out there already. I certainly don't seek to reinvent the wheel on that, and plenty of them are highly effective. So I will share just my personal angle on it, which is all about what's going on up here on the mental healing and the mental aspect side of it. So the way I view childhood wounds are they're like snapshots that we carry within us, and when I have discovered them within me, they really have been like moments frozen in time. And as I've undone, released, or healed some of them, they've just been gone. They've been genuinely healed, and I've discovered what the snapshot was. Sometimes it was a visual memory, other times it was a feeling memory, and other times the catharsis released something and I didn't even really know exactly what it was. But here's how I see it as happening, where they get stored in us like knots. And if you can picture a real actual knot here, one you would make with multiple strands of string or rope. And if a bunch of that got knotted together, you know, we've all had a knot to deal with at some time in our life, either in our pocket or on a cable or something like that. And some of them can be really fiddly to undo. But if we imagine that for the instance of our childhood wounds, these knots are made up of a number of threads, which are what you did, what they did, whoever they are, what happened, how you judged it, how they judged it, what the aftermath was. And all of these threads come together to form the knot. Now, in a positive sense, these would become part of the pattern of the tapestry of our life. But in the negative sense, they become a knot where energy can't move through it. The energy of expression and the energy of processing can't move through it, and we get stuck. So we are either stifled, can't express ourselves, or we're not even aware of it. It's so deeply buried that we just feel numb, or we feel blackness or nothing there when we're asked how we feel about certain things, or even if we feel at all. And the reason I use the knot analogy is because it's very useful, because undoing and dealing with some of these wounds is often just like dealing with a knot. Now, I don't know about you, but I have found that there is one trick that applies to every single knot, and it works with all of them. And that is that there is one thread that you can tease loose, and from loosening that thread, the rest can be unravelled. And it is no different for our childhood wounds. Now, as I mentioned earlier, other processes can get into those knots and make them move just by forcing energy through them until they release. Even things like yoga or certain cathartic processes can achieve that effect, but it doesn't work for everything. And certainly not for the ones that have a component of here that are impacting us in our aspirations for how we are in the world. And for those ones, there's one thread that is constant in them all that you can change. Because you can't change what happened, you can't change what you did, you can't change what they did, you can't change any of that. The only thing you can change is how you now view that, how you judge it and yourself now. And often we have a fixed conclusion that we've made about that, and that's part of that firm knot. And sometimes we're not even aware of what conclusion we made. So on tackling it, we've got to have a sense of what the situation actually is, what happened. And once we've got that, if we can get ourselves into the feeling of what was going on, and meet ourselves in that place. The Toltecs would call this a recapitulation, where we virtually relive a situation, but instead of being the victim or the one who did something wrong. We view ourselves with compassion and wisdom and the maturity we now have that we've aged, that neither we nor the world are perfect, nor are the people in it perfect. And we must give space to ourselves and others to get things wrong, to enable us all to grow and to heal. And if we can revisit ourselves, revisit those situations with compassion, space, empathy, and a sense of taking care of ourselves, being there for ourselves in a sort of a reparenting sense, then we can salvage our energy from that time. We can release the knot that is binding us and allow the energy to move through us again and bring healing. And interesting, what happens is when we loosen up those threads, we need to re-knit them into a new pattern. That's our new interpretation and our new judgment of what took place. And it's through undoing a knot to then knit it into a new pattern that, makes the situation take a healthy place in the woven tapestry of our life. And if we weave these threads together in a useful way, we can create integrity, which is a reliable structure, an emotional and a judgmental structure that we can trust and rely on to be compassionate to us and to others. Now, these are two silent K words, which isn't an accident. Those of you who have done some of the masculinity work with me will know that the silent Ks are very much all about masculinity in one way or another. The knight, knitting, knots, knees, knickers, all these sort of things, knobs. These are all things about masculinity. But knitting and knots are very masculine in this respect, because they are about measurement and direction and boundaries or drawing lines. So often with a knot, even though it's got a K in it, it also has the connotation without the K, which is, I'm not going to let that happen again. I will not do that ever again. I'll never open myself up again. I will not let somebody into that part of me again. And so we create these knots. And if they are healthy, then they become part of our integrity, which is a reliable structure. They become part of a beautiful pattern within us, which we can enjoy, and so can those that we encounter. But when it's not a healthy one, that's when our energy is blocked and stifled, and we may desire to express ourselves in our relationship or in our, with whoever, or the interaction, but as the energy is moving through us, it's stifled or blocked in some way, and we end up either having a spasm where it doesn't come out quite right, or we don't express ourselves at all. So in answering to the question, I think we have to throw ourselves at these wounds, at these knots in some ways, because they are holding us back, all of them. And it is a case of by any means necessary to free ourselves from literally these trappings that we've created for ourselves. And although others may have done things to us, how we view that is still our responsibility. And how we choose to keep punishing them or us is still our responsibility. And so we can keep the wound open and festering if we choose, or we can find the ways to set ourselves and the others involved free from our fixated judgment and conclusion about it. And if we truly want to be enlightened, i.e. to feel lighter, if we want to be healed, if we want to move forward and express ourselves wholeheartedly and wholly in the world, we must find and address every knot that is holding us back. And so I use any means necessary. Sometimes I'll use cathartic techniques, and other times I'll use this mental recapitulation process like the Toltecs did. And if you have a look online, you'll find that there's a breathing exercise that the Toltecs teach on how to recapitulate, which is about a breathing action as we move our heads. I'm not going to go into that right now because others have described that better than I do. And also I don't want you to obsess about that, because our body and our life give us an opportunity to work on these things, because the memories will bubble up or the blocks will bubble up on us at some point, and in that moment, while they are live, we have the opportunity to uproot them and get them out, or to move past those blocks and release them. And for me, my invitation is to either seek the things that will trigger that, so that you can then set yourself free, or to watch for them when they do bubble up, and instead of suppressing them back down or ignoring them like you may have done in the past, or having the energy of give up, which means that you will just accept the wound and pretend that you're stuck with it forever. Instead of that, if we deal with it when it's live and seek to be present with ourselves, be present with the feeling and be compassionate and give ourselves space for being inexpert. Having been a helpless child, having been unable to help ourselves or unable to stop that thing happening to us or somebody else, if we can give ourselves that compassion, that love and that reparenting experience, then we can set ourselves free and those wounds will be truly gone. I hope that was of some use, Mel, and thank you so much for your question.